Welcome to the fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas, and this week Ken Rideout will not be here. He's away running a race. Good luck to Ken in the race. He's in Africa, but no fear, we have a good replacement. We have my son, Teddy Atlas, same name, Teddy the Third. You've heard about him. If you're regular on this show, you're a little bit familiar with him. He's an NFL veteran, been in the NFL for 15 years, worked his way up to top scout, and then director of scouting. He started with the Jets. He went to the Cleveland Browns, and then he did a large stint with originally the Oakland Raiders. Then they moved over to Las Vegas, and he finished up with the Las Vegas Raiders for a few years. It's before I formally introduce him, I can't help it. I was thinking before, how am I going to introduce my son? Who, obviously people that have children, they know how important your children are and how proud I am of them. Of both my children and my grandchildren, my daughter Nicole, my son Teddy. But I used to watch, I'm giving up my age, but then again, the gray hair helps with that too. The Ed Sullivan Show. Yeah, a few people are going to chuckle. But the Ed Sullivan Show. That was a show where they would introduce some pretty big acts that they thought would be future stars on television. Little acts like the Beatles and the Jackson 5. So you're in pretty good air, pretty rare air, Mr. Teddy Atlas the Third, because as the late, great Ed Sullivan would say, this was in his signature introduction, we have a really big show for you today. Introducing my son, without further ado, Teddy the Third. Hey, buddy, thanks for being here. Thanks for filling in.
Hey, bud. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm ready to talk some boxing.
Yeah, and then when we're done with the boxing, we will go and do a little football. First of all, nobody to talk about it better than you. We have nothing but sports fans. I know they're boxing fans, but they're sports fans too. And the football season is starting next week. The NFL season, the college season just started. The NFL season is starting. So I will have you do some football, if you don't mind, after we get through with our boxing. We have my bookie, of course. We do sponsorships. We're fortunate enough to be sponsored by my bookie, and we do segments all the time. So if you're up to it, after we go do some football and have some fun with it, maybe at the end you might even give the fans a football pick or two. They might actually be happy to get one from you after they got a few boxing ones from me that maybe they still got a bad taste in their mouth from. They forget about the good ones I gave them. Though that's a short memory. Our fans would be good golfers. They really would be. Because they got short memories. To be a good golfer, you got to have a short memory. You got to forget about that shot that went into the woods. You got to get out there and you got to hit it on the green. All right, let's hit it on the green. Go ahead, you got it. Take it away.
All right, so before we get into the football talk, let's start off with the action from last night, or Saturday night. The great undercard action from Dignity Health Arena, Carson, California. In the opening bout on DAZN, we had the women's WBC interim super flyweight title on the line. Ginny Fuchs, now 4-0, won a split decision over Adelaida Ruiz, now 16-1-1, in a very competitive bout, with the scores of 97-93 Ruiz, 97-93 Fuchs, and an embarrassing 100-90 card. The all-over-the-place scorecards, they weren't the only surprise of the night. After the bout, when Fuchs took off her glove, she discovered she had a compound fracture in her thumb, It was protruding out with the bone. The 2020 U.S. Olympic boxing team captain showed tremendous toughness, battled through it. In all my years watching, I've never seen anything like that, bud. Have you seen that before? And what'd you make of the fight?
Competitive fight, embarrassing. The judge, the only thing embarrassing about the fight was the judges, not the contestants in the ring, which is usually the case, or quite too often the case in our sport of boxing. But put that aside. I thought she won the fight. It was a good fight, competitive fight. I've never seen that before. I mean, when you get your hand raised as the new champion, which she did, right? It was she got a hand raised, new champion. It's pretty unusual to have one of those hands have a bone sticking out of it. I mean, that's a new one. That's a new one for me. And all I can do is say, I take my hat off to her. Wow. To keep her concentration, never to let on, never to complain, never to show it to her opponent, to show any distress, anything at all, and to battle through that. She is really the definition of a champion, what a champion entails in all ways, beyond the physical talents, into the mental realms, into the heart and soul of, again, what it means to be a champion, and have the right to be called one. So congratulations to her. Get that fixed. It was pretty nasty looking. All right.
Yeah, that was. After that, we had some more good action. The cruiserweight division, 10-0 WBA number 4, Clarke won an action-packed, tough majority decision over Apochi. Scores on that one, 95-95 draw, 97-93, and a 2-wide for me, 98-92. Really good action fight. I thought a good start for Clarke. Apochi turned the tide in the middle rounds. Definitely both had their moments. Clarke staggering Apochi in the 8th. Apochi turning it back and staggering Clarke in the 9th before being saved by the bell. Non-stop action. Two big cruiserweights going at it. What'd you think of the decision? Who'd you like in that one?
I thought the decision was right. I thought it was embarrassing to have it that far apart in one of the cards, as you just touched on. I thought it was right with the decision. Close rounds, close fight, tough fight, great fight. I'm making a candidate for Fight of the Year. There's already a couple up there, buddy. But I'm putting it up there. I'm throwing my hat in the ring along with that as a candidate for Fight of the Year, because it was that good. It was that good. You had conflicting styles. Clarke, the more versatile style, the more polished guy, the more finesseful guy, if you will. Boxing on the outside, he did have more options. Apochi, one dimension, but a good dimension. Tough, strong, steady, good power. Both of them depended on the jabs a lot and the right hands. Different ways, but the jab really the key. Where for Apochi, the jab to get in. For Clarke, the jab was used to keep distance and range where he could move and do other things with Apochi. In other words, where he could keep him off, where he could keep that little bit of gap, where he could use his legs, where he could, put punches together, get angles, do things like that. And he did it. And that was the difference. And he was consistent. He handled the pressure of Apochi. It was tremendous pressure, but he handled it. They both went to the body. They were terrific. I want to see him again. They're not spring chickens. 33-year-old Clarke, and I believe Apochi, 36-year-old. So I want to see him in good fights, important fights right away. I think they deserve it. I think they earned it. At the end, as you said, tremendous. 8th round, Clarke has Apochi badly hurt, incredible chin, incredible heart to come back from those shots. What does he do? He comes back the 9th round, the end of the round at the bell, as you said. He hurts him, and then he continues in the 10th round, hurts him again. Doesn't quite get the finish he felt he needed. It turns out he did need the finish in the 10th round. Went after him, had him hurt, but couldn't get him out of there because as much as Apochi showed unbelievable intestinal fortitude, Clarke, when he had to, showed the same thing. Again, little bit more finesseful on his part. He could do more things. He wins the fight. Keep an eye on these guys. They've earned the right to be on your tube again and to get your attention again.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a great action fight. I love to see the rematch as well. Following that fight, we had going to the smaller guys, undefeated super bantamweight Arturo Cardenas, now 15-0-1, trained by Robert Garcia. He won a split decision over fellow Mexican Jesus Arechiga. Another very evenly matched undercard, good back and forth action, where Cardenas was rewarded the victory by split decision. Scores of 98-92, 96-94, and then 96-94 the other way for Arechiga. Again, a very good competitive fight, but I thought Arechiga edged the fight out. 98-92, very just too wide, unacceptable for me. How'd you score it? What'd you think of that one?
If it's unacceptable for you, bud, it's unacceptable for me. It was ridiculous. It was absurd, but it was consistent with the inconsistency of these judges on this night. And unfortunately, it's not only on, it's not where you could say it was just a bad night, because there's too many of those nights. Because next week you're going to have another bad night, and a week after you're going to have. We got to get better judging. But again, I've beaten that thing to death, talking about that. I'm trying to get a national commission to help with that. With Congress. That again, I've gone down this road. I've discussed that before. I'm not going to spend time discussing it again. I would think the fans felt the same way. Well, that those scores, no matter who you had winning, they're just not acceptable, that kind of score. I agree with you. I thought Arechiga won the fight. I thought it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight. Cardenas had Robert Garcia, who's becoming one of maybe the top trainer in boxing right now, because he's got so many good fighters, so many champions. I give him a lot of credit. He was known as an offensive trainer. He's more than that. He is a good, solid, complete. You see him in the corner, you're saying, this guy he's with, he's real. He's got to be real. Otherwise, he's not attached to him. Really good fight. I thought Arechiga I just thought he had the edge. That's 2 losses in a row for him. It's unfortunate. He doesn't deserve it. But what he does deserve is, if he doesn't get a rematch, and I'm sure he won't, but if he doesn't get a rematch, he deserves another important fight. He really does. Well, both of these guys showed themselves to be really good fighters. I mean, they could come forward, they could time you, they could counterpunch. They're tough. They're solid. They go to the body and the head. Technically, everything they do is done well. I thought Arechiga was just a little quicker, but I want to give a compliment to the matchmaker, Bud. I think you would probably second that, because the matchmaker was good. I mean, that matchmaker was really good. There was only one, and you'll bring me to it. I don't want to jump ahead, but there was only one that I would say a mismatch. But otherwise, usually you get about 10 that's mismatches. You get a lot. Not on this night. So anyway, that was the 2 guys that you should keep your eye out for, Cardenas and Arechiga.
Yeah, and that leaves back-to-back fights. I wouldn't mind seeing rematches too, the cruiserweights and then those guys. That brings us to the last fight before the main event of the evening, which we had junior lightweight division, hard-hitting Mexican Eduardo Nunez. He stopped the game, but passed his prime veteran 37-year-old Miguel Marriaga in the 6th round when the corner stopped the fight. Marriaga has now lost 4 out of his last 5 fights and has stopped for the first time since 2017 versus Lomachenko. With the win, Nunez has now won 18 in a row by knockout. He's also 28-1 now with 21 knockouts, and is the number 1 ranked IBF contender for Anthony Cachachi's belt, who will be defending it in September, the end of the month, versus Warrington over in the UK on the Joshua Dubois card. I thought watching the fight, Nunez's power obviously stands out right away. His style reminded me of Acelino Freitas a little bit from back in the day. But anyway, what do you think of Nunez's performance, and what do you expect next for him?
Yeah, Freitas became a champion. He was from Brazil, right? If I remember correctly.
That's right, from Brazil, Popo Freitas.
Yeah, made a lot of money, made a big splash. And if my memory serves, I'm not sure, but I think he wound up losing to the Cuban, one of the terrific Cuban world champions that came over from the Cuban national team, I believe. I don't remember exactly, but I could see the similarity there. Look, first thing I want to say, I believe it was Marriaga's a 3-time title challenger. I believe it's 3 times, right? But do I got that correct? And so he's been around. He's 37 years old, 10-year difference, as you pointed out. Nunez, 27. Nunez is a star for me, a future star. He's got, first of all, it starts with talent. He's got the talent. He's got the ability. Just it strikes, it shouts at you. The talent just screams at you. The power, the speed, and technically he's solid. He knows how to fight. Having said that, when I touched on it, that was the only mismatch of the night. Marriaga showed unbelievable heart, great experience. That kept him there for 6 rounds, but it was one-sided after the first round, where he caught Nunez a little bit by surprise. But then Nunez got into gear, and it was all Nunez. It was just a matter of time. It wasn't if, it was when. When is he going to stop him? And Marriaga, I mean, his defense, his experience, moving his head, countering back in spots. Again, it kept him alive for a few rounds, but it was just a matter of time. And for me, if I'm in Nunez's corner, the only thing that, obviously they're doing a great job, I would have just said, start going to the body more consistently, because the head's moving, the body don't move. You got a guy who's trying to survive. He's surviving by making you miss those big head shots. You're looking for one big power shot, and you're going to get it eventually, but not that way. Go to the body, freeze the body, then go with the power shot to the head, and you get him a little sooner. I think he would have got him a little sooner. But again, Marriaga showed great heart, great experience. He survived, I think it was to the 6th round, and then he got caught the body shot. He did go to the body finally. He got dropped with the body shot. He got up. He went to the corner, and the corner did the right thing. They stopped the fight. I hope they did it on their own. Either way, they did the right thing. I think they got a little help. You notice that, Bud? They got a little help. A little push from the commission and the ref saying, "You want to stop it?" I mean, where do you hear that? You want to stop? Do you want to stop this? Would you like to stop it? And yeah, we'll stop it. So they were basically kind of in a nice way telling you, if you don't stop it, we're going to stop it. You better stop it. So anyway, they stopped it, and Nunez is definitely, for me, Eddie Hearns has another star in his stable, because this guy looks like he's that good.
Yeah, I agree. Impressive performance, fun guy to watch, explosive. Talking about explosive.
One other thing I'll add to that. Marriaga, did you notice, Bud? I mean, I know that it was easy once he got hurt, but I noticed when you can always tell an old fighter with their legs. It shows. You can't hide it. You can't hide gray hair. You can't hide spaghetti legs that look like they were your mom's spaghetti 2 days later. Just not good. Wobbly. And you could see in the first round, if you know what you're looking at, you could see his legs were not sturdy. Even before he got hurt, they were not sturdy. It was like he borrowed someone else's legs, to walk around. And when you see that, for me, that's a sign that you really got to start thinking about the end for a fighter, because it connects with his ability to take a punch. When his legs ain't there, it's telling you, I no longer can endure punishment the way I used to be able to overcome it and endure it. Anyway, I just want to throw that in.
Yeah, no question. You could see the legs immediately. And to your point earlier, more of the reason that Nunez should have been as you would say, putting water in the basement and taking the air out of those tires. But talking about body shots, let's go to the main event now. We had Diego Pacheco, the 23-year-old WBO #1 ranked super middleweight, now 22-0, 18 knockouts. He beat the 35-year-old former middleweight title challenger Sulecki. This was the first time the rugged and game Sulecki has been stopped in his career. Pacheco was taller, he was longer, he was more skilled. He was just too much and just better than Sulecki. What'd you make of his performance?
Yeah, I've used this analogy before. If you're going to be a star, you go out there on Broadway, let's say, right? A lot of stars come from Broadway. You go out there and you bring the curtain down. That's how you become a star. You go out there, you bring the curtain down. He brought the curtain down. He went out there. It was a coming out party for him. Yeah, the boxing insiders, the industry people, they all know him. But the public in general don't know him. This was a chance for the public to really get to know him and get to understand why they should believe this guy is the next future star. Because after a while, it becomes like just, it sounds like you're just using words. You're saying, oh, the next star, the next star, the next star. There's a million next stars. But when are they real? This gave you a reason to believe it's real. As you said, knocking out a guy, stopping a guy, 32-2. His only 2 losses were to high-profile fighters, former champions, Demetrius Andrade and Danny Jacobs. So to be able to go and do it in the fashion that he did, just not only with power, but with good technique, with finesse, with ability, with class, if you will, to throw that in there. Just he did it the way a fighter that you think is going to be special should do it. And he showed me more of a repertoire, too. We know he's got the jab in the right hand, but he showed me the hook, he showed me the uppercut, he showed me combinations. He showed me more of his arsenal, Pacheco. What I love about him, it's not just the fact that he scored that unbelievable left hook to the liver, but the technique that was with it. You know, Bud, you've been in the gym with me. He did a move that it's taught. And it's good tech. You can have all the talent in the world, but you have to have the technique to deliver that talent, the proper technique, the right technique to deliver that talent. And what he did in that left hook to the liver, where a lot of people might have missed, was he throws the jab in the right hand. That's his Sunday punch, the right hand. Let's say that's his Sunday punch. He throws the right hand. The right hand misses. But then he, without hesitation, in sequence, with that, in rhythm, he throws the right hand, he slips his head to the left. Why? That's taught. You do that to get out of the way of the right hand coming back from your opponent. So you're in safe, responsible defensive position. So he throws the jab, right hand, slips over. He makes sure he's outside that right hand in case he throws the right hand. And guess what? He's in perfect position now without any danger of being hit to deliver the left hook to the liver. And he does. It was with good teaching, good technique. He's got a good trainer. He's got Jose Benavidez, David Benavidez' father, who does a real good job. You could see the teaching there. I like to give trainers credit when they deserve it. They don't always deserve it, but you know what? Good trainers usually do deserve it because somebody's teaching that fighter that's got talent. Somebody's helping bring it out. And as I said, it's not just enough to have the talent. You have to know how to use it properly. He knows how to use it. The other thing I love about Pacheco, where I give him a good chance to be around for a while and be really a real star, where he can settle in and possibly go from 68 to light heavyweight. And who knows? Maybe even heavier. Who knows? He's got that kind of frame. He's got that kind of skeleton where he hasn't filled in physically yet, where he could move up to a few weight classes and be really, really special. But what I like most about him, we see his physical ability. But I like that he's got these physical, God-given assets of that he genetically was gifted of height and length, but he knows how to use them. He knows his identity. He knows his identity. He is a guy that's got to control the outside, fight tall. He knows how to fight tall, keep you at the end of his jab, make you earn your way in, and mug you as you try to get in. You know, you try to get into his neighborhood, he's going to say, no, you're not getting in without a right hand hitting you, a right uppercut hitting you, a counter left hook hitting you. You're not getting in here so easily. He keeps you at a place that is bad for you, good for him, where you can't hit him, he can hit you when you try to get close. He knows how to fight tall. He knows his identity, and it was never more evident to me than under pressure when Sulecki was putting pressure on him, and he still stayed consistent and true to his identity. He kept that discipline where he didn't fall in. You know, he didn't get into Sulecki's game on the inside, would give Sulecki maybe a better chance to land some. He landed a left hook, he landed some earlier, but that would have gave him a more consistent chance to land something. No, what did he do? He always kept a certain range. He always kept extension on his punching, always kept Sulecki at the end of his punches, even when he had him hurt. You know, a lot of young fighters, he's a young kid. What is he, 23 or 24, bud?
23 years old.
He's 23 years old. A lot of young fighters would have engaged. They would have got in close. They would have got to a place, geography-wise, where they gave the shorter fighter a chance to do something. He didn't do that. He was cognizant all through it, of making sure that he kept him on the outside enough where he didn't smother himself and he got extension on his punches and he could keep that flow of offense flowing.
Yeah, great composure and how calm he was, especially for a 23-year-old kid. Impressive performance, to say the least. Since you just touched on it, Diego Pacheco trained by David Benavidez' father, Jose, and Canelo has made it clear that we're not going to be seeing him fight David Benavidez anytime soon. I have to ask you, do you think Pacheco is ready for Canelo now? And if so, like Benavidez, Pacheco's a younger Mexican-American who's bigger, who's longer. So do you think Canelo would actually face Pacheco?
I got to answer your question direct. I'm not saying he's afraid, this or that. What I'm saying is Pacheco represents a bad matchup style-wise for Canelo at this point in Canelo's career. Canelo's been pro since, 15, 16? He's been around a long time. He's not real old. What's he, 33, 34 in that area? But I think he's slipping a little bit. Everyone does. A little bit. He's still terrific. He's great, Canelo. He's a great counterpuncher. He's got power. He's achieved great things. But when you start getting older, and Canelo is getting older, and you start slowing down a little bit in certain areas, which everybody does, the first thing that's a problem for the older fighter, I touched on it earlier, is legs. Legs. Where it's harder to close a gap with the older legs. You're more susceptible. The physical style of Pacheco is a nightmare matchup, I believe, for Canelo. Much more than Munguia, much more than Berlanga. Berlanga might engage him. Berlanga might move a little bit. He might engage him. That's good for Canelo because Canelo's, you engage him, he's experienced, he's a good puncher, he's a terrific counter puncher. He can counter you, he can catch you, he can hurt you. Munguia engaged him. He hurt him. He dropped him. You can't counter a guy that's as tall and long as Pacheco and knows how to use that length and stays on the outside. There's nothing to counter. Yeah, you're going to shadow box all night. There's there's nothing to counter. And I've already seen proof that Pacheco shows the discipline to know his identity, that you could depend on him to stay with it. If he stays, he still might need one fight. I still think he might need one. For me to be comfortable, I want Pacheco to get one more. But you got to be careful who you're fighting. at this point because you don't want to lose your mandatory spot because you are the mandatory to Canelo. So if anything, you want to force Canelo to show he don't want to fight you. You know, if you got to fight him, you got to fight him. But you want to show Canelo, maybe let him be the one who says, no, I'm going to give up that title. You know, I got 2 other titles. I'm going to give up that title. I'm not going to go that way. And then you could go another direction. Eddie Hearn already said, his promoter, that he would love a Marriaga fight. Huge fight in California. Huge fight. But there's danger to that fight. There's danger to all the top fights. I think Canelo wants no part of him for the reason I just laid out. That the style at this point in his life with this 23-year-old kid who can punch, who's got a freaking jab as long as a phone pole, I don't think that Canelo's going to jump at that. You know, he's already shown he has no problem avoiding guys that he doesn't feel comfortable with. And he's the golden goose. He can get away with it. He gets paid no matter who he fights. He gets good numbers. He can get away with it. He can avoid Benavidez. He can avoid, whoever he wants to avoid. And look, he earned it by being a pay-per-view king. Okay, all right, I'm not arguing that. But I am arguing that if you want to be the greatest, that you got to think a little bit like the greatest thought, which is to fight everybody, to show you're the greatest. But I'm not here to beat up on Canelo because Canelo doesn't, there's nothing to beat up on. He's had a great career. He still has a great career. He's facing Berlanga, a young, talented, undefeated fighter next. But again, just to solidify the answer, which I think I did on your question, a good question, but I don't think Canelo, wants any part of him right now. Not with what he saw the other night, and just the physics of it. The physics of it is a difficult. It's just a difficult play for Canelo at this point.
Yeah, if you're not going to fight Benavidez and the name recognition that comes along with him, why would you take the chance and the risk when there's not as much reward and fight Pacheco? So I agree with you, but I have to ask you, touching on the Berlanga-Canelo fight, would you rather see, even though you said Pacheco is probably a fight away from fighting Canelo, would you rather see him fighting Canelo coming up next weekend as opposed to Edgar Berlanga?
All right, I answered this right, bud. Great question. I answered, and I'm sure the fans are happy you're asking these. I answered this way. I think I might have answered already, but I'll answer specifically and make it very clear. I think that Pacheco's is a more dangerous fight than Berlanga. That's my answer. Would I rather see that? Yes. Yes, I would rather see that. Taking nothing away from Berlanga. Berlanga's a young, talented kid. He hasn't learned how to lose yet. I think he falls into the category of Marriaga, where he's not quite ready, not quite maybe another fight or two, not quite mentally ready to handle this huge spotlight, this huge stage, and this very good fighter. But maybe I'm wrong, because there's one X factor, and you know what the X factor is, bud. I know you know what it is. Fighters get old, and you don't know when that's going to happen. You just don't know when that's going to happen. That's the one X factor. Canelo gets old. He just gets old. Bang. He goes, oh my goodness. What the heck happened to Cinnamon? Whoa. I knew that would get a chuckle out of somebody. What happened to Cinnamon? He got old, Cinnamon. What can we do now? Well, you can sprinkle him on your coffee, but otherwise... No, he's had it. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. But, yeah, I'd rather see, look, I'm not saying I'm not going to watch Berlanga. That's going to be interesting. I'm anxious to watch that. But, yeah, I just think that it's a more difficult matchup for Canelo against Pacheco.
168-pound division heating up, Pacheco or Berlanga?
Pacheco, I think I probably made that clear. I think Pacheco with his style is difficult for anybody. And he's this, And he's sticking with it. He's consistent with it. I think he's difficult. He's dangerous. And yeah, that's it. Next.
Sticking with Pacheco, because I was so impressed by him. I just want to throw out some random names to you in the 168-pound division and just get your quick take on
All right.
Pacheco, Christian Mbelli.
Pacheco. Mbelli's going to come at you. Made to order for Pacheco. Catch him coming in. The only problem is if he does get in, Mbelli might set up shop and, do a little something. But otherwise, I like Pacheco.
How about Pacheco against Derevyanchenko? Would that be the fight you'd like to see? One more fight as another tune-up before a Canelo fight?
Honestly, I want to see Derevyanchenko retire. I love him. His legs look old. He's taken a lot of punishment. He had a big amateur career. He's fought only top guys, champions. He's fought everyone, Triple G, everybody he's fought. Some people thought he could have got it against Triple G. I love Derevyanchenko. He's made money. Thank God. God bless. But I don't know that he should be fighting, and especially fighting dangerous guys like this. He's a guy that's never been stopped, obviously, and if he continues, that will change.
Talking about the 168-pound division and just sticking with that, but that Canelo holds the crown to. He's a 20-1 favorite coming up for the fight we just touched on September 14th against Edgar Berlanga. With that being said, that evening will also be a rematch for Canelo versus the UFC. On the same night down the block from the MGM at the MSG Sphere will be Sean O'Malley defending his bantamweight title versus Merab Dvalishvili on Mexican Independence Day. Last time we saw Canelo go head-to-head with the UFC was in 2019, where DAZN delayed Canelo's fight for hours and until the conclusion of the Masvidal and Diaz fight.
Is that the fight where Canelo was sleeping on the couch waiting a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, Canelo and Kovalev. Kovalev was falling asleep as well in 2019.
So they had to postpone it because they made a mistake. They went up against the UFC. They thought there was no problem. Turned out there was a problem, and they pushed it back, and as you just said.
Yeah, they did, and they caught a lot of slack and embarrassment that came with that. So I ask you, with the rematch on the horizon, who wins this time? What does it look like? Canelo versus UFC 306 at the Sphere.
There's a lot of factors that have to be really, really figured into this answer because they both have great bases. I mean, Canelo has the great Mexican base. Great. And they will be there. It's Mexican Independence Day. They will be there. You know, some people don't believe in the threat of Berlanga enough, but he's still undefeated. He's a talented fighter. It's on top of everything else. It's Mexico against Puerto Rico. Two places that have nothing but great fighters, great history of fighters. So there's that side to it too. The main thing is it's Canelo. And it's Mexican Independence Day. And so the people will be there. The fans will be there. But the brand of UFC is a monster. It's a monster. But they got some things, working maybe against them a little bit. Their ticket prices are higher. But they got some positives. They have one of their superstars. O'Malley is one of their superstars in a tough fight, in an interesting fight. O'Malley's the best striker in the UFC right now. He's tremendous. He's so good. I think he could be a pro boxer. He's that good. I mean, the only guy Tupoya and Max Holloway, the only guys I think of that come close to him right now in the UFC. But they have a situation. I mean, yeah, they're going to be the first sporting event in the Sphere in Vegas. And it's cost somewhere around $20 million for Dana White and the UFC to get it ready. And so it's going to be spectacular. Spectacular. So they got that overhead too. But they also have, as I just touched on, they have the fact that the prices of tickets are a lot higher than what the fans have to pay to watch Canelo. So it's not so easy. I was ready to come in here. You helped me, bud. I was ready to come in here and say UFC, unanimous decision. I don't know if I'm ready to say that right now. Because the other part, too, is there used to be a time for a long time where the UFC undercards were a lot better. The last year, since Turkey Al-Sheikh came around with the Saudi money, the undercards of boxing have been pretty damn good. And then you had a good undercard last night, Saturday night, we just talked about too. So some people will make the argument, this is a very interesting, good-looking undercard for Canelo. That's not always the case, but it is here. And it's a good undercard too, I think, for UFC. But some people might say that boxing might have a little edge. I don't know. I think the UFC undercard is pretty damn good. 3 of those fights, very damn interesting too. But here's the factor that we can't factor in yet until afterwards. Pay-per-view. Who's going to freaking win in the pay-per-view? That's the thing. That's it. So the fans out there that are ready to kill me saying, oh, Tony, it's boxing is going to beat, UFC and then the UFC. No, we're going to beat boxing. We're going to beat Canelo. We're going to put him on a couch again. We're going to make him, snore again for a little while when he shouldn't be snoring before a fight. Not so fast. Either side, not so fast. Because, again, you have the pay-per-view. Canelo's a pay-per-view monster. The UFC is a pay-per-view monster. So I'm curious to see who wins that. Because that, a lot of times you'll hear me say in a fight, whoever has the better jab is going to win this fight. Whoever can fight on the inside is going to win this fight. Well, whoever can win the pay-per-view is going to have the better jab and is going to wind up having the edge on the inside. That's going to be the winner. It should be interesting. What it won't be, I don't think, a repeat of what we saw a few years ago where they make the concession, the embarrassing concession, to say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, out there in the audience, we're going to have a little delay while we wait for the UFC fight to go on first. Okay? In the meantime, we'll have a little bit of somebody doing some singing and some tap dancing. Okay, thank you. But it should be interesting. I am curious. I'm going to throw it at you, Bud, for real quick. What's your feeling? Just what I said, or do you have a strong feeling one way or the other?
No, I'm very interested in. I agree with everything you said and seeing how this plays out. I definitely agree. It will not be the same that it was in 2019. It will be different this time around. I think for me, the deal breaker or the decision, the factor that I see is you do not have a Mexican fighting in the main event on the pay-per-view card for UFC.
That's a great point.
Obviously you do with boxing with Canelo. For that reason, on Mexican Independence Day weekend, I'm going to say Canelo.
That's a great point.
But I want to ask you, touching on that fight, touching on Sean O'Malley and his desire to move over to boxing, if he does cross over to boxing, he's named guys like Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia. Why can't he cross over to boxing? And if you were his manager, who would you prefer out of those two guys from a stylistic standpoint?
He can cross over because he has the instincts, the talent, the abilities of a boxer, a pure boxer. He's got the legs, he's got the eyes, he sees things real good. He's got long arms, he's got quick hands, he's versatile. He can use the ring. He can move around, get angles. He can set traps. He's a great natural counterpuncher. Great. If you wait in front of him, he gets off first. He gets off, he puts punches together. And smart, educated punches. Smart combinations, up and down, where they're tricky combinations. They're advanced combinations. They're not primitive combinations. They're not just basic combinations. They're combinations of a top fighter that you would if you walked into a room and he was on TV and you didn't see that he wasn't wearing shoes and you saw him striking for a while, you might think you're watching a fight, a boxing match. He's that smooth, he's that silky, he's that natural with it, comfortable with it, controls range, controls distance, beautiful, and he can punch. He gets good power. Wiry guys usually get good power. So that's why, as far as who would I take out of those two top guys, I'm not knocking them, but I wouldn't take Tank Davis. I'm not saying the other guys are walking the park at all. Obviously, not at all. But I take Garcia before that because Tank Davis to me is just the more rounded fighter. There's more things to worry about. He's more dimensional. He can punch. He can counterpunch. He can come get you. You know, there's so many facets to his game. He's so consistent. Garcia hasn't shown us that he can be consistent. He's got these emotional things going on right now, ups and downs, where you don't know if you could depend on him. His next performance, where's he going to be mentally? You know, I always talk about 75% of the business is mental. Where can you count on him mentally, Garcia, coming in the next time and being at the level that you need him to be at? You know, besides all the controversy with everything with the PEDs, he's suspended now with that. With everything else, I definitely would make it the weight class that O'Malley would want it to be with a rehydration clause. Yeah, you would definitely want to make it that. You wouldn't have to do that with Tank, but you would want to do that with Garcia. But again, if I had to take him, I'm not saying that Garcia's wouldn't be dangerous and wouldn't be a favorite in the fight, obviously crossing over, but I would take Garcia for the reasons I just said before I would take Tank Davis.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, in football, you know, when you're scouting a player and you're trying to make a projection of a crossover or a hybrid conversion, you usually want to think of a player to compare to paint the picture. Is there a fighter or a boxer that you would compare Sean O'Malley to?
Yeah, and it's the greatest compliment I could give Sean O'Malley, and I like his nickname is similar to his. Sugar Sean O'Malley, I would compare you to Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker, one of the greatest fighters. Yeah, he's take a look. I asked Rob to put side to side, which was your idea too, to put side, and you're going to see it. You're going to see. Watch this footage, people. Enjoy it, people. Really, enjoy it. Watch Pernell Whitaker, Sweet Pea. Oh my God, he was magnificent. Oh my God, we miss him. We miss him. What a stable they got up in heaven. What a stable they got up there. He fits in with any era, with any era. One of the greatest lightweights of all time. I would have loved to see him and Roberto Duran at their peaks. Oh, I would have loved to see that. But Pernell, Sweet Pea, Whitaker, I couldn't give you a higher compliment, Sugar Sean, because you look at it, he makes you miss. You make guys miss. Your defense is good. That's another quality why I think he could be a pro fighter. He's defensively responsible with his legs, with his head movement, all of it. Instinctually, you see with Pernell. Will you see with Pernell? He was a ghost. He make you miss right there. Make you miss. Bah, bah, bah. Counter right back. Make you miss. Move around him. You know, I'm not here. Where am I? Where is he? Oh, I'm over here. Oh, no, I'm over here. Move right around. Control. Talk about ring generalship. Control the ring. Make the turns on you. O'Malley does that too. So, yeah, I would say I give him the greatest compliment by comparing him to that man. Pernell Whitaker.
Yeah, that's a special one. And that makes me even more excited to follow Sean O'Malley if he does pursue the boxing angle. So that was all the fights, all the action this week for boxing, bud. Before we have some fun and jump into some football talk, anything else on the boxing end?
No, I think you covered it all, bud. I think that you did a great job. I think you covered it all. I can't really think. I know there's a few fights coming up, but we've obviously covered Canelo and Berlanga coming up. I think we can have a little fun now with the football. Okay, guys, convert now. Convert, guys. Convert. Okay, you can do it. Convert over. I know you're football fans. Who's not a football fan come September? Please. Please. All right? There's plenty of you out there. Get ready for a treat from a guy who's spent 15 years in the NFL. I think the best scout in the NFL. I know I'm his father, but you know what? Don't take my word for it. Read his resume if you ever got a chance. If he ever put it out there, and he wouldn't. But yeah, you read his resume. You see some of the best coaches in the NFL have backed what I just said. So anyway, I embarrassed them enough. So go ahead, bud. Let's do some football fun.
Yeah, thank you, bud. I want to just touch real quickly before we do get going on the football stuff. Most people at home probably don't know this, but you're more than a football guy than most people. You're not the average Joe that way. You're a former high school quarterback. You've given numerous pro and collegiate teams motivational speeches, from teams I was a part of with the Browns and Raiders to college teams like Nebraska and Syracuse and many others. You were actually on the Jets coaching staff in 2006 to 2008 under head coach Eric Mangini. They put you in the media guide, so if people don't believe it, they can look it up and see it. You've been around it, and you know it, and you've trained guys in the offseason with the New York Jets. So real quick, I just wanted you to talk about some of the basic parallels that you see in boxing to football as you got to work with these players from a position-specific standpoint.
Yeah, all right, we'll pick one. We'll pick, say, the offensive line. Now, the offensive line, you have to be able to punch out. They actually say that. The coaches say when they're teaching in camp, punch out, right, bud? I'm right?
Sure.
Punch out. Now, when you punch out, a lot of times you if you don't have the technique down the way you should in boxing, you punch out, your elbows might come out. A couple things happen. When your elbows come out, you lose time. You lose a split second. You give a telegraph there to your opponent. So you lose a little tenth of a second time-wise. You don't get it out fast. And you lose power because your power goes out here. The power should come straight. Bang! Bang! Straight out from the shoulders. Straight out. If you raise your elbows, you lose that power. And the timing. If you punch out just a little bit too soon, you're out in space and you lose your balance. You fall in like a fighter. If you punch a little too late, the guy gets into you. He's already inside. He's in your wheelhouse. He's got his big ham hock hands on you. Those 320-pound linemen that have bad breath. Now they breathe on you. They got their hands on you, and they're moving you around. You don't want that. So what I would bring to, in my own humble way, my little way from the boxing world with the coaching staff, when they put me out there and they said, all right, Teddy, talk about show the offensive lineman what you're talking about with the, punching out. Punch out at the right time, boom, without raising your elbows, and where you nail the guy right at the perfect position, the perfect place and space where you have him under control, where he can't get to you. Again, a little too late, he got to you. A little too soon, you fall in, you're off balance, you can't help nobody. And even worse, you get yelled at in the film room. I've been in the film room. You've been in the film room. They start laughing. They start saying, oh, what happened? You lose your contact lens? What are you looking for down? What are you looking? What happened? What are you looking for down there? So that is one of the simplest way. And then there's a million others. There's a million other parallels, with footwork, with the quarterback. You want to have your weight forward on the balls of your feet, but you don't want to bounce. You want the best of both worlds. Forward on your feet where you can move quick, but you have balance. You can punch, you can move, but if you're bouncing, you're not set to punch. You have to come down to punch. So, same thing with a quarterback. Bud, you don't want those happy feet in the pocket. You don't want the too jittery with the feet in the quarter. You want the same thing, where you're set, you're ready to move, you're ready to get the hell out of there, but you're already set to get that pass off to beat the blitz. So, there are the physical parallels that I found it very easy to bring to the football, to give a little tiny bit of help. And then the mental area. That was the main area. The men, because they got to deal with controlling their fears, with being calm in an uncalm environment. How do you think they feel when they're down in their stance and there's a 330-pound lineman that bench presses 500 pounds, and he's ugly and like I said, he's got bad breath and he's right there in front of you and he's saying a couple things to you, and you got to deal with that. You got to have a calm mind. You have to have a strong mind. You have to have good concentration. You can't be scattered all over the place. You can't allow your emotions to betray you. You can't allow your fear to knock at the door and freaking put you in a position where you can't do the job. You got to know how to not answer that door. Anyway, you ready to go out on the field and play now? Well, you're ready. Because sometimes when I got done with some of the speeches, and you were there with some of the teams, they were ready to go out. They would say, "Okay, let's go, let's go, let's go."
I've seen guys crying after some of your speeches, but it's interesting because I've always thought those parallels you touched on that helped me to be a better scout in football and what to look for and what not to look for in guys. That makes me want to ask you a random question that we've talked about before, but some people may be surprised to hear your answer to this. What sport is more dangerous? Is it boxing or is it football?
What a great question. You have a future in this business here, No, that's a great question, but I'm going to tell you. Football. Yeah, wow. People are going to say, come on, Ted. Boxing, you get hit. You got one guy. Football, you got 11. You got 11 different places you could get hit from. It's hard to know where those 11 are at all times. You could get hit anywhere. Last I checked, the only place you could get hit is here. From the waist up, this is it. I haven't seen yet where they can hit you in the knees, where they can hit you in the thighs and, all that stuff. No. And you got 11 men that are the greatest athletes in the world, that are in a weight room, that are like pieces of steel, and they got helmets on. And they got helmets on. They got projectiles, and they're coming at you. And they run 40s. What did the top guys run a 40 in, bud?
Well, from 4.2 is, the record setters to 4.3, 4.4.
4.2 is a guy like Deion Sanders, right? Those kind of guys?
Yeah, that's right. 4.2, you're not running with humans anymore.
All right, there it is. So you got guys that are pretty damn fast, that are strong, that could pick you up and do a bench press with you. And there's 11 of them coming at you at different places. Yeah, I'll say it again if people didn't hear me clearly. Yeah, football's more dangerous. Yeah, I'll say it right now. Boxing, of course, is a dangerous sport. We get it. But you got one guy to deal with, and if you train properly, and you match properly, and you're given the proper technique, which is supposed to be to hit, not get hit. I know everyone gets hit, but I mean the sweet science of the sport is more than just being tough. A lot more. If you've been gifted with the help of the proper teaching, the proper gifts, the proper abilities, you got one guy in front of you. You know what? It's a tough thing, but 11, it's tougher.
Interesting. Sticking with some football talk and just some questions I have for you, bud. You've talked plenty of times on this podcast. I'm sure the fans have heard you say it. And in boxing, there are less American heavyweights because they're either pursuing MMA or football, the NFL. So if you could go take one past current NFL player and make him a boxer, who are you selecting and why?
One past football player?
Or current.
Or current. All right, I know who.
Who you got?
Listen, I know we might have to put stilts on him and make him a little taller. I know that, and I'm joking. But man, I'm taking Barry Sanders. I don't care. I'm taking Barry Sanders. That man, he would be Lomachenko on steroids. He would be Lomachenko 2.0. I mean, the legs, the stop, go, angles. You talk about angles, you'd have to recreate angles. You'd have to recreate phrases for him, recreate verbiage for him. He's here he comes. Oh no, he's not. Whoa, he went to the. Whoa, no, he went to the other side. And now he's and with the upper body strength, he's a powerful upper body, real powerful upper body, strong legs. Quick legs, stop on a button, change direction, and with his eyes, where he can see the holes with 11 guys in chaos, or forget it, 11 guys, 22 guys out there on the field with all that chaos going on, and find the hole. Wow. If I didn't convince you, you're never going to be convinced. I convinced myself that to have that ability, to have those God-given abilities and those taught abilities and the experience that this guy garnered in his business to do such spectacular. Barry Sanders, I would love to train that guy when he was young. Oh boy, that would be fun.
My favorite running back of all time, and one of my favorite football players, period, of all time, Barry Sanders. At 5'8", 205 pounds, might be a little short for cruiserweight, but I like it.
What was he? 2 inches shorter than Tyson? Let's get down to real stuff here.
That's fair. Yeah. If that. I think Tyson 5'9".
I don't know. They listed him as 5'10". I don't know. Depends where you were reading it. You know, sure. It depends who was writing it that day, that week. Right. You know.
Well, talking about Barry Sanders, I want to ask you this. We just saw Francis Ngannou almost shocked the world versus Tyson Fury. A guy with no boxing experience. Obviously, he has fighting experience, which is huge from the MMA and the UFC background. But a guy who almost pulled off the impossible. So could it ever happen? Could a former football player convert to boxing full-time, obviously, and become not just a contender, not just a conversation, but a legitimate threat to become heavyweight champion of the world?
I think so. And the late Michael King tried to find that out. He invested a lot of money, millions of dollars. Michael King, for those who don't know the name, is he was a TV guy that made billions of dollars syndicating shows, TV shows like Oprah Winfrey, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, and he had that kind of money. So he liked boxing. So he ventured into it. He called me up to ask me for help too, but he ventured into it, and he actually built a warehouse, a gym out of a warehouse. He had it going for some years, where he was bringing in former college football players, pro football players that didn't make it in the NFL, or college players that didn't quite get to the NFL, or maybe they got injured and they didn't get a chance to go there, or NFL players that went there for a cup of coffee, but then they didn't get the career they were hoping for. And he was trying to answer that question. He was on a quest to take one of these great athletes and make him into the next heavyweight champion. And again, it ended before, I don't know how many years he invested in it, but it ended before he could get to that, to where he was hoping he could get to. I think that it could be done. It would take a special athlete. It would take a special guy. He's got to have the discipline, not just the physical talent, the discipline in his life. So someone who had discipline, somebody who has been in circumstances with extreme emotional distress, where they've been extreme emotional stress and extreme conditions of threat, of basically fear, where they've been in situations where they've dealt with those temptations of giving in, those temptations that can erode you, that can evaporate you like a puddle on a July summer day, that could make you just go away. Those are the things. Those are the qualities they would have to have. Somebody who had been immersed in a previous life and practice of dealing with that kind of temptation, that kind of threat where the devil knocks at the door and he tempts you to submit. He tempts you to get out. He tempts you to quit because it's too extreme. The threat is too extreme. The pressure is too extreme. It would have to be somebody who's had that kind of background. I would look for a guy that had a wrestling background in high school or college, because that to me is as close as it gets to boxing, where you, first of all, you got to be smart, you got to be athletic, you got to be strong, but you also have to ignore the devil knocking at the door when someone's trying to submit you, when somebody's trying to pin you, when they have you twisted like a pretzel down on the mat and suffocating you, and you refuse to tap out. You refuse to be pinned. It would have to be somebody that's been in that realm, somebody who has been fire tested in that kind of furnace. Of again, that furnace of temptation, that furnace of threat, that furnace of danger. Somebody who has, been there. It could be, it could be the guys that were in the UFC early enough. But again, guys that have something where I could work off from the mental standpoint. From the mental, the physical, we know we're looking for. We got size, you got the football players. That's not hard to find. You got size, you got athletic ability, you have strength, you have a guy that knows how to condition himself, that has a certain level of physical endurance. We need the mental endurance. We need that. And for that, you have to have some background that we can draw from, that we can pull from. So that would be, if I did that search, those would be the prerequisites that I would look for when somebody filled out an application and said, Ms. Atlas, I'd like to join this search for the next heavyweight champion that was a former football player. Okay, fill it out and show me your background.
Yeah, very interesting. When we talk in football about guys' experiments, as we're talking about, and you look at former wrestlers, I used to love the possibility of those guys as offensive linemen. For the mental stuff that you just touched on, they understand leverage, their core strength, but you're looking for some kind of redeeming trait to be able to work with and develop, like you said. So with that being said, out of the guys who've tried it, who are the best boxers out of our former football players?
Yeah, well, I tell you.
Not a ton of guys.
No, it's not. I mean, look, it might be easier to say who the worst was, but I'm sure you're going to get me there. The best, I would have to say, he wasn't an NFL player, neither one of them, but I'd have to put Derek Rossi. He was 20-6. He played football, BC, bud?
Boston College, that's right, defensive end.
Yeah, he became a pretty good heavyweight. He became a pretty good. He wasn't bad.
I remember Rossi. He fought a lot on Friday Night Fights when you were coming.
He fought some good fighters. 20-6, but he fought real fighters. Some real fighters. They gave him his easy ones at the beginning, like they give everyone. But then he fought some real fighters. Gerald Washington, another college football player, didn't make it in the pros, as far as I know. You would know better, but. Gerald Washington, he fought some really good fighters. Actually, he beat some fighters that were that were rated. He beat some names if you look at his record. So Gerald Washington, I think Derek Rossi. For the people that don't know them, they can Google them. They can figure it out. I thought that Le'Veon Bell, he was only 1-0, but I thought he would have been an interesting guy. I think he knocked out Adrian Peterson in his one fight, the the great fullback or running
Yep,
back.
you're right.
And Peterson was physically stronger, but Le'Veon Bell won because he was a smart runner, and he took that into boxing with him. That he really did. He took that cerebralness where he was so smart. He would stop, he'd move. A little bit like Barry Sanders, but nobody was like great eyes. Nobody was like Barry Sanders, but he was smart, and he took that same, ingredient, talent, trait into his one pro fight, and he knocked out a very strong physical Adrian Peterson, who was a monster. He was a monster, a beast. You told me that Peterson was a beast.
No question.
So I thought he could have been good, but, I guess he stopped. And those I think, Highsmith wasn't bad. Alonzo Highsmith, he had a real good record, 27-1-2, but he didn't fight the level of the guys that I said before. But Highsmith was a better football player too. This is a guy that was
number 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft out of University of Miami.
Oh, the U came out of the U. He came out of the U.
And the U might be back. Yeah, an impressive performance this weekend versus University of Florida. All right, so give it to me.
One other guy, Tom Zapowski.
Tommy Z, Tom Zabikowski, Notre Dame.
Yeah. Notre Dame, I got to mention him for the Notre Dame fans out there. They get mad at me. There's Notre Dame fans out there everywhere, just like there's Dallas Cowboy fans everywhere. 8-0, he finished 8-0. He didn't really fight nobody, so I can't put him as a top guy. But he had a little edge, though, because he actually had an amateur background. He actually had a good amount of amateur fights before he went all in with the football. So he's another name, but go ahead.
And then the worst one.
All right,
Who was the failed experiment?
Yeah, Too Tall Jones. Look, Too Tall Jones finished 6-0. People say, Teddy, how's he the worst? Take a look at the footage we're going to show you of him fighting. He's too tall. How tall was he, bud? Too tall, approximately.
6'6"?
I think he was even more. But all right, let's say 6'6". He fought in his first fight. Of course, they picked the opponents to be as low level and as beatable as possible, right? That's what they were doing. So they picked the opponent, a Mexican opponent who was about 5'5". I'm joking. He wasn't that short, but he might have been 5'7" or 5'6". But my God!
And Jones was probably closer to 6'9", not 6'6". I said.
Yeah. So it was crazy, and the little guy dropped him. He dropped Too Tall Jones and basically had him out. Except he jumped on him and hit him again. I don't know what he did, and then they wound up. They didn't disqualify each other, and they wound up giving it to Too Tall Jones. But that would have been the end of his career. It could have been ended before it ever got started. Good thing Muhammad Ali wasn't in the audience, because he would have yelled timber. Because Ali's the greatest. He would come up with these things, and there was talk about him fighting Will Chamberlain one time, and that went out the window, because at the press conference to set it up, Ali got behind Will and went, timber, and that was the end. Wilt, the greatest. Wilt, one of the greatest of all time. Don't get me wrong, but that was the end of his pursuing a boxing career after Ali did that. But I would say Too Tall Jones was pretty bad. How can you imagine they found 6 guys that he beat though? And then no, really. Don't run around, but. Whenever there's boxing season, when you do your road work, don't do it near a cemetery, because there could be a lot of holes that could have been dug up and used for opponents. So that's just one of the secrets of the old matchmakers back in the day, when they could get away with that stuff, Sam. They would joke. You'd ask a manager, you'd say, who are you looking for your guy, for your prospect? Well, I'm looking for a guy with one arm, half a leg, and no pulse. Oh, okay. All right. I think we have a cadaver that fits that, So anyway, I I would also have to throw Mark Gastineau in there. I'm sorry for the Jet
Oh,
fans. The sack exchange. I'm sorry, but Alonso finished his career, didn't he? Didn't Alonso Highsmith finish his career?
he did. Gastineau was pulling away and turning his back, and it was hard to watch. And it made me think, as you said, Gastineau, because of how bad he was. It reminds me of my experience growing up and all the fighters I've been fortunate enough to grow up and be around with you. They are brutal athletes, boxers. Like brutal. Why is that? Because when I watch Gastineau, that's what I think. Like, yeah, just not a good athlete.
That's a great observation. There's a reason for it, bud. You're right. They used to have the Stars show years ago. Do you remember that? I'm going back many years. They used to have the Stars show where they would take top athletes from different sports and put them into different events. You remember that, right, Sam? I forget what they called it. And it was on ABC Wild World of Sports, I think. And they would have them perform a little basketball, sprinting, or doing a mile race, doing a race, doing hurdles, doing handball, doing tennis, whatever. But you figure they're great athletes. Do a little swimming. They're great athletes. They could do anything. So they would take them from track and field, basketball, football, and boxing. The boxers never won anything. They came in last. They were pathetic, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
it's
why?
the only sport they don't play it seasonal, bud. All the other sports, it was seasonal. When you're growing up, you're playing baseball. Baseball season's over. Your father, if you have a father or a neighbor or uncle or whoever, a brother, you're playing basketball. Then you're going to stickball. Then you're going to you're going to basketball, football. Then you're going to maybe soccer. Then you're playing. You're growing up, and you're getting a chance to be subjected to all sports. And then finally, you see you're really good at one, and you settle in on that one. Finally, but you have a whole youth of playing many sports before you get to that place in different seasons. Boxing, there's no season. It's all year long. And if it's a father or a coach, they get very serious. They think you signed the contract. You're 7 years old. You got to do road work. What? Oh, you're 8 years old, 9 years. I can tell you. I got to go to school, Pop. Did you do your road work? It's serious. You come home, you go to the gym, you do your homework, hopefully. You go to the gym, you go to bed, you get up in the morning, and that's it. They coaches in boxing, they would poo-poo doing any other sport. They didn't want you to get hurt. You can't do any other. You got to be dedicated to boxing. Boxing's a serious sport. You could get hurt. If you're not dedicated, if you're not serious, then go do something else. All right, I'll be there 24/7. And that's what it is. Because the coaches would demand it and put that mentality into a young kid who said he wanted to be a boxer. So he never got a chance to expand himself, to spread his wings in any other adventures of sports.
Makes sense. I never thought about it that way. Now that you said it, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, yeah. Michael Moore couldn't dribble a basketball. He wasn't a great athlete, obviously a great boxer. But the guys that I think were good athletes were the ones who started much later, like a Michael Grant and guys who were probably playing different sports as a kid, like you touched on, not just boxing. So that was interesting.
100%. Michael Moore is going to be mad at you. He'll call you. He will call you. You know he's temperamental. He will call you up and say, I can play basketball. I can play basketball.
Cannot play basketball. I'm sorry, Michael. But a great fighter and the first ever Southpaw heavyweight champion of the world. All right, so let's have just a little fun, a little exercise. Let's start your own fantasy football offense with football season, obviously, right around the corner here. And you're going to build your own fantasy football team, and you're going to do it using professional boxers or MMA fighters if you want. And we're going to start with the most important position and the leader of the offense, the quarterback.
All right. You need to be good size. You need to be smart. You need to have good eyes, be good under pressure. You need to be a winner. You need to be a leader. Right? You got to be a leader. You got to know how to win. Only one guy. Usyk. 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 I can hear it now. Usyk. Usyk. I mean, you know, he's got he's got the traits that you need, really. And he's a southpaw. And I'll finish with this. Right up your alley, buddy. Kenny Stabler, buddy, the snake. Kenny Stabler, the snake, the riverboat gambler, the guy when the money was on the line. The money was on the line. You wanted that southpaw, that snake out there, right? And the money's on the line. Who would you rather have out there as your quarterback than Usyk? Bang!
I like that one. I thought you might have went somewhere else, but I do like that one. I was thinking Steve Young, but the Raider one, that makes sense. Might worry about him at the line of scrimmage with the Ukrainian accent, calling out the plays as a communicator, but that one makes sense. I like it.
Have to work on that. Have to work on that a little bit. But we might have to import a couple Ukrainian linemen. All right.
All right, give me a running back.
Roy Jones, baby. Great athlete. You got to be a good athlete. You got to be fast. You got to be elusive. Who was more faster? Who was more elusive at his prime? You have to have great vision. Again, great sense of anticipation, reflexes. Who had better sense of anticipation? Reflexes and vision to see everything, you know? I mean, really, I can see him now in the end zone after he scores a touchdown doing the rooster. Remember he used to do that with sometimes playing around when he had an easy guy, he put his hands behind it and do the rooster. Well, I got to pick him just for the end zone dance. Just for the end zone dance, I had to pick my man, Roy Jones. And look, the only problem that he does bring, he probably bring a few flags. But other than that, you know, because you would get flagged nowadays in the end zone. You know, what do they call that, Bud? What do they flag you for now?
Haunting?
Yeah, whatever it is. When you're showboating afterwards, they flag you. But then again, they allow something in end zone now. They flag you for something for overly celebrating.
Yeah, they don't want taunting of the opponent, but you are allowed to have, as you've seen, these out of control end zone celebrations.
Yeah.
Now, it might have to be Roy Jones a little later in his career at heavyweight. I don't know about 175-pound running back holding up, but
No, we would have to get him on a weight program. We don't want him later in his career. Later in his career, the things that I just touted him on, reflexes, speed, vision, those things weren't what they were when he was young. So we need the young, but we would have to bulk him up. Hey, he bulked up to heavyweight when he fought Ruiz and won the heavyweight version, one of the heavyweight belts.
All right, we got a quarterback, we got a running back, we need a tight end.
How about a fullback?
Want a fullback? Yeah, do the fullback. Who's blocking for Roy?
All right, because for me, better be Man of Steel. Go get him! We need 1 yard. We need 1 yard! We need 1 yard! Okay, I get 1 yard. Would you take 2? Yes! Boom! Right up the middle. You need a block? Block him. Hit him. Open the hole. You need 1 yard. You need 2 yards. Who you giving it to? Who you giving it to? The battering ram. The man of steel. The man who's physically and mentally above most people, most humans. You're giving it to Arthur Beterbiev. And I'll throw one other backup in case he hurts a knee or something. Smoking Joe Frazier. Okay? Smoking Joe Frazier. Here he comes. Here comes Joe Frazier. Oh, wait a minute. I got to go out on the sideline on this play. I got a cramp. All right. What was the next one, Bud?
We're going to go with tight end.
All right, tight end. All right. Tell me some of the qualities, and then I'll tell you who I like. Tell me some of the qualities you, as a scout, look for in a tight end, and then I'll come up with the guy.
Yeah, there's two different types of tight ends that play. There's what we would call the Y, the bigger, stronger, inline blocking tight end, whose primary responsibility is to block. Or there's the F or H back, the move around. So you could put him out in the slot, flex him out, run routes, catch balls. So ideally, you want the guy who's the joker, the guy who could do both of those, the guy who could block and who could go out. For us with the Raiders, that was Darren Waller.
All right. Okay, you gave me what I need. I need size. I need a big target. I also need somebody, who can move somebody. I'm going with Tyson Fury. I'm going with Tyson. But what kind of a matchup nightmare, horror would he be for a cornerback in the red zone when you throw those corner passes? You know those passes that you see every game. You see the guy goes in the end zone, he goes for the corner. What is that called? A corner pass? Whatever it is.
Fade.
Yeah, the fade. Hey, where the quarterback just throws it up in the air high. Who the hell is going to match up with Tyson Fury when they throw it up to the high point?
I love that one. 6'9". I worry about, natural leverage blocking in line. But, what a red zone target. Just throw it up, let him get it. And that should be some fun touchdown celebration dances, too, afterwards.
Oh, him? Yeah, I think so.
Maybe a little singing.
Yeah, but they might go a little long.
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap it up. We got our quarterback, our running back, our fullback, tight end. Let's finish with a wide receiver.
All right. It might be a little small, a little light in the backside for some people. I don't know. Maybe you have to put him in the weight room a little bit, but I don't care. He's a scat back. He's a wide receiver. You put him in the slot. He reminds me a little bit. You had little guys that won Super Bowls and helped New England win Super Bowls with Wes Welker. Well, who was it? It was Wes Welker.
Julian Edelman.
And Julian Edelman. You had those two little guys, right? And they helped them win Super Bowls. I'm going with the money man. Gonna make some money for you. Floyd, money, Mayweather. I know you got to put him in the weight room a little bit. I know it, but fast, quick, eyes, elusive, get open. I mean, who the hell's going to cover him? You're going to tell me that a linebacker is going to cover him? No, I don't think so. And you hit him in the flat and let him do his thing. What do you think, bud? I don't know. What do you think?
I thought you were going to say Lomachenko there as you were describing him, but it makes sense. You got to be smart, and he was smart. You got to know leverage. You got to understand how to run a choice route. You have to be quick. And, it doesn't hurt when you're a small guy in the slot to know how to protect yourself and be a little defensive. So I think Floyd makes a lot of sense right there.
To do all this stuff, right? To do all of this, you do have to have a lineman, probably a guard to block for some of this, the offensive positions that we just talked about. So would you allow me to give one offensive lineman?
Let's do it. You got your tackle, you're going interior.
How about David Tua? What kind of pulling guard would he be?
He would knock you out.
How about back to the days of the Green Bay Packers and Vince Lombardi with the power sweep, where Vince Lombardi, it's legend, that he said, we could tell you what we're running, and you still can't stop it. You can't stop the Green Bay Packers power sweep. How about it? Back to the Packers power sweep. David Tua doing this. He's down. He turns. He starts going this way. Some people might go that way. He's coming with a head of speed. His head down. Oh, my goodness.
The short little arms might be a little problem, but I'm with you. You get him pulling, you get him in space, and you let that power go to work. He's gonna do work on guys. That was interesting. That was a fun little exercise to hear your fantasy football team. Man.
I had fun with it. I mean, it was. I think it is fun, and be about it. I want to finish this up with. I would say now that I would like to put you on the spot a little bit, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, just a little bit, a little bit. You've done a great job, by the way. But I like to put you on the spot a little. We do have my bookie out there. You grew up a Jet season ticket holder with me. And you did grow up in New York, even though you've been living out in Vegas for a few years. You still are a New Yorker. Once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker. And you remember the fireman going, Jets, 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 Jets. You were a little kid. You were my man. You were still my man. But you were a little kid. You were just a little thing. And you used to come and you used to watch him do all this stuff. He would come over. What was his name? Fireman Ed?
Fireman Ed. He's still going.
Yeah, still going. So let's put a cap on this show by asking you. You got Monday Night Football starting. And the opening Monday Night Football game is the Jets and the 49ers. So I'm going to ask you. I know that, hey, look, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback for the Jets, coming off the terrible injury at his age, especially. What's he, 40 now? 40 or 41? I don't know.
He's 39. Yeah, he's right there.
So he's 39 or 40. You got Aaron Rodgers, one of the great quarterbacks of all time, coming off the terrible injury, the Achilles injury, season ending in the first game last year for the Jets. Now playing against the 49ers in the season Monday Night Football game opener. Give us a pick and a quick, synopsis of what to expect.
Yeah, before I give the pick, I'm going to ask you a question first, because I think the most interesting part of this game for me, what you just touched on, is Aaron Rodgers and his mindset coming back from the torn Achilles from the season opener last year. In boxing, what does it take from a guy who is a former world champion, who's been knocked out in the first round for the first time in his career, as Rodgers was knocked out in the first game, no tune-up fights, and comes right back and gets in there? How does he flush it out of his mind? How long does it take? What is the most important thing for him to know he is back?
To know he's okay. To know that he's okay. To know that he can rely on himself. To know that he's not different. To know that he can do what he's done his whole life. It's hard to know that after that kind of devastating situation and act. I have one perfect for you, bud. I'm glad you asked that question, because I have a perfect example. I went through it. We had Michael Moorer. He got knocked out by George Foreman, and we were looking to get back to win the world title against Axel Schultz in Germany, outdoors, for the title that Schultz had won. He won it from George Foreman, actually, afterwards. We had to have one fight before that. And in that fight, the most important round, not of the fight, but of his career, was the first round. The first round. And when he came back on HBO, you can hear me, he came back and I said to him, as soon as the round was over, and I had my heart in my throat, going around in the corner. Good thing they didn't, have a heart monitor on me, because it would have been beeping really loud. I get in the corner. What do I got to say the right thing real quick. We got 1 minute. I said, okay, you got that over with. Now you know it's just what it's always been. Just another fight. Let's go. You got that out of the way. It's just another fight. What you've been doing your whole career, what you've been doing the best of anybody in your whole career. Same thing. Same thing. Rogers got to go out there, get through that first set of downs. For you, you might take it a little longer. I'll leave it up to you. But for me, get through that first set of downs. Maybe get to the point where he gets hit. Where he gets hit once, gets up, brushes himself off. And if you don't have somebody saying it to him like me, because they don't have cornermen out there, then maybe the coach on the sideline, or maybe he says it to himself. Okay, Aaron, let's go. You've done this how many times? You've won Super Bowls. You're right back to doing what you do, and nobody does it better.
Yeah, I mean, nobody does. And it's very, for me, it makes sense what you just said. I was thinking along the same lines. I mean, first of all, it's going to take a couple hits. He's got to get to the ground. He has to get back up. He needs some bodies flying around him to know, hey, I'm back. I belong. And you said 1 round. This might be 1 quarter. This might be in half. And I say maybe a half because unlike the story you told with Michael Moore, Michael did have a tune-up fight. He has no tune-up fight, no preseason games, and he's thrown in there with the champion.
No, but that was the tune-up fight, bud. That was the tune-up. That fight that I'm talking about, that I'm describing, that was on HBO. That was the tune-up fight before we fought Axel Schultz. So that was.
I thought you were saying in the Schultz fight. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, so I see it very similar. I think it's going to take some time, and if it takes some time, that means they're playing from behind. And they might be a little conservative early on. He might take some time, and you do not want to fall behind against the San Francisco 49ers. With their ability, their head coach, to run the ball, with Christian McCaffrey, with the weapons, Ayuk just re-signed, Deebo Samuel, and that defense, I think it'll be hard for the Jets and Rodgers to play from behind and come back and beat the 49ers in San Francisco. I like the Niners to win minus the 3.5 points. But there's still hope for our New Yorkers and our friends out there, Mark and Anthony, that the Jets, I think, are going to be in contention to have a nice, promising run at the playoffs this year.
Why?
Because of Aaron Rodgers, number one. And I like the pieces in place. Breece Hall is a really good running back. Garrett Wilson is a legit number 1 wide receiver. They've revamped the offensive line to hopefully better protect Rodgers. But the one thing that they hang their hat on last year, and Coach Saleh hangs their hat on, and they play hard for him and physical, is the defense. And if you got a defense and you got a quarterback, you're in games. And good quarterbacks usually find ways to win. I think later in the year, Rodgers will do that, and the Jets will be in contention to have a good season. And hopefully, for Jet fans, maybe finally get them back into the playoffs.
That's a great breakdown. It makes sense. I don't know if the Jet fans like it, but
And the last thing I'll say, with the near tragedy news yesterday of the wide receiver for the Niners being shot in San Francisco, Ricky Pearsall, the rookie from the University of Florida, I think those guys are gonna. It's a little, not that the season opener wasn't enough, but a little extra motivation to rally and support behind their man there.
Kind of like the Buffalo Bills did for the kid, the great
Lamar
kid.
Hamlin.
Yeah, that,
That's a good
he
point.
didn't get shot, but he had a heart. He had a heart situation right on the field. So very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Emotion is so important. It's such a big important part of that game, and they're going to have quite a bit of emotion on their side because of what you just said. So that's a great point. Listen, I can't help it. I get a little greedy. I'm going to throw one more at you. You just gave us that. But I can't let you leave without just one more football pick for the fans out there. If you had to pick one outside team in the NFL to possibly make a run for the Super Bowl, I mean, I think most people might, they might be looking at Kansas City and the 49ers. I'm probably in the right neighborhood, right? But as far as maybe the favorites, I don't know what the line in Vegas is.
Yeah, those are the 2 favorites.
Those are probably the favorites. Okay. So give me one, dark horse or one outsider that could make, in your mind, with your knowledge, could make a run towards the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, no one. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the third or the first ever 3 time in a row Super Bowl champion. And I'm going with the Chiefs to win it all again. I know that's like going off on the edge there. They are the favorite. Maybe I've been in their division too long and I've seen too much, 12 years, obviously with the Raiders in the AFC West division. But I listen to you in this podcast all the time. And what do you say when a guy wins a championship? He automatically becomes 30% better. So does that mean Patrick Mahomes is 90% better now as a 3-time champion? To me, he just keeps getting better mentally, identifying coverages in the film room. He's got more speed, which he's been missing, added to the team this year with their draft pick from Texas, Worthy, free agent Hollywood Brown. Obviously, still have Kelsey, Pacheco, one of the best coaches in the business, Andy Reid. They returned their defensive coordinator, Spagnuolo. I'm not going against them. I'm going with the Chiefs. But to give you one team and one outsider and somebody has a shot, I like the Rams. I like the Rams. I like the head coach a lot, Sean McVay. They have 2, in my opinion, number 1 wide receivers now that are very dangerous, ball in hands after the catch. Puka Nacua, obviously Cooper Kupp. They have a proven winner, Super Bowl champion quarterback, Matthew Stafford. I think you get them in the playoffs. That's going to be a tough out. The game planning, that coach, those weapons, the experience. I don't think they're getting a lot of hype right now, but I think that's an outside team that might have a shot to make some noise.
Wow. I never would have thought about the Rams. I thought that they was done to a certain extent, that they were up and then they went down, and then it was a matter of recalibrating, regrouping, and coming back. And I thought that would take a while, so I never would have had
some teams I would favor probably above them, but I wouldn't say to your question that they're outsiders. You know, Detroit Lions are hyped up this year. The Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley. There's a lot of, obviously, the Green Bay Packers with the hype in the season they had last year with the young quarterback, Love, and add in Josh Jacobs in the running back room. So I do think there's a lot of parity, and it's going to be interesting. But for an outsider team, I would slot the Rams below those teams. That's who I think.
That's a real thorough breakdown. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you going there and doing that. I appreciate you doing this show very much. I'm sure the fans appreciate it. That you came out of the bullpen. You came right out of the bullpen when Pops called you and said, "Hey, I need a little help. I got to leave with a joke. You know, I have that sense of humor, right? And the people out there, you're smiling, so you probably know where I'm going. But I just leave with that name, the great New York Yankees, the great Yankees from years ago. There was a player named Wally Pop. Well, what was his name? Wally
Pip.
Wally Pip. Does anyone know him? Does anyone? Probably not, unless it's part of a trivia answer. But he was the first baseman for the Yankees, the great Yankees. And then one day he couldn't make the lineup, and a player named Lou Gehrig stepped in. And you never heard of Wally Pip again, because Lou Gehrig never left that position for I don't know how many years, but he became the original Iron Horse, where Lou Gehrig never missed a game from that point on. So I'm not saying that you are the Wally Pip to Ken Rideout. We're not saying that. I had to put something out there as a little bit of humor. Ken will be back next week. I hope he's doing well in his race. He's got one of those crazy races that he's doing in Africa. I'm sure he's going to do great. I would put my money on it that he's going to wind up winning it, as long as a lion doesn't get a hold of him. But I'm sure that he'll outrun that lion. Just don't go climb a tree, because they climb, Ken. They climb. Anyway, buddy, listen, I'm sure the fans appreciated it. I appreciated it. very much, and go and enjoy the Labor Day weekend. For everyone out there, by the time you see this, it'll already be past. I hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend, a safe Labor Day weekend, and you enjoy it with your loved ones. And, buddy, go give a kiss to my buddy, little Teddy the Fourth. Give him a kiss and tell him I love him. And thank you. I love you.
Yeah, thank you, bud. I had a blast being here. It was fun. I hope I didn't create more work for Rob on the editing, but thank you, bud. And I love you.
Love you.